Good evening and welcome back to another episode of the Joust via Zoom. Now, Len, how do you find Zoom as a platform?
Oh, look, I quite like it. It means I don't have to put anything on kind of below the chest. So, I'm just sitting back, crop tops all the time, a lot of crop tops, tanks as well. Starting to get chillier, starting to let the shirts kind of lengthen down to my belly button. So, just going to make changes as the seasons do and as we almost do in this trying time. It's hard to buy crop tops when you can't leave the house, so I don't actually have any T-shirts left. I've cut them all up. So it's going to be a long, cold winter for my midriff, I'll tell you that.
Speaking about long, cold things, Liam, the rugby league season's...
We've been doing this for 3 minutes, Scott. Come on.
Things that are long and cold. The rugby league season is long and cold, typically when it's in its full length. And sometimes throughout those seasons in history, some strange things happen. Things go a little bit pear-shaped, don't go to plan. And we've assembled these in what you've described as some rugby league oddities. I thought today.
A bit of strangeness and a few unique things and certain things you don't tend to see in the game very often and things that are just funny, whether they be at someone's expense, most of them are, or whether they're just humorous misunderstandings. It's good to look back and laugh a bit on the things that have given us some fun over the years in rugby league and some things which our, newer rugby league fans may never have seen in their life. Some fairly unique occurrences.
It's good to laugh again.
Very good to laugh again.
And we'll put all the links down the bottom to the things we're looking at. Now, Liam, do you want to take us through the first one here?
Oh, I would love to take us through the first one here. This is one of my all-time favourite videos because it's something you don't see in the game anymore, and it's the kicking duel. Now, it's much more reminiscent of the way that you play rugby union. You kick for territory, you kick for space. But this was towards the end of the territory kicking game. So you've got, on the New South Wales side, two of the finest strikers of the ball you'd ever see. Laurie Daly right there, great example. Ricky Stewart, he, I don't think he invented, but damn near perfected the torpedo bomb. Yeah. And then you've got Dale Shearer at the back for Queensland. So what you end up with is just basically, 34 plays? You've got 31 players taken out of the game. And it's just being controlled by these three guys probing and, trying to find the right territory, hit the right corners, put it right back as far as you can and hold that defensive line up. It's fantastic. It's one of my favourite clips of all time.
Effectively, once you kick and then you kick again and you put all your own players offside. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So once you've kicked from behind your own defensive line, all the players in front of you are offside. So they have to stay 10 metres from the kicker. But what you'll notice... Not on, I believe it's on this kick. Ricky Stewart kicks through, and you'll notice, I believe it's Rod Wishart comes from behind Stewart and runs all the New South Wales players on side. Now, this, as a kicking duel, was well and truly won by New South Wales. As you can see, Shearer had to start on the try line to work his way out. But I'm just in awe of that video every time I see it because it's tactical genius that you don't see in rugby league much anymore.
Why did they get rid of the kicking duel then?
Well, I suppose it just didn't seem feasible anymore with the way that what modern wingers and fullbacks play. They don't have the kick in their arsenal quite so much. Instead, they focus on a strong kick return. And, I'm not too sure why that went out of the game, Nagy, but it'd be interesting to see it back. I know a lot of people find it very boring, but I hate to use this word. Your rugby league purists could learn to love it.
In the end, it is just two blokes kicking the ball like they're down at the park. It's sort of like you said. You said it takes the other 34 players out of the game, and quite literally it does. And it's just two blokes just kicking to each other. So I can probably see the argument of it is a little bit boring, considering it does take away all the other things that make rugby league exciting, like the running and the tackling.
But as kids, Nagy, didn't we love to play forcey-backs? You remember forcey-backs?
Yeah, look, I feel like that was always a game that the school liked to play because it was, no contact involved, no risk to the children.
Oh, no, at my school, we made it contact forcey-backs.
Okay.
It was full contact forcey-backs.
It was a Sawtell, I assume.
It was, right down on the very, very hard dirt ground of Mary Helms Christian's primary school down there.
Oh, gosh.
All the rocks we played on in Group 2 juniors, a lot of the fields had rocks on them, which was terrible in winter.
remember those fields that you play at, but they say, oh, there's a bit of, it's from the ground, from the previous, because, a lot of fields are often waste areas, and then they get covered up, and then sometimes it's like, oh no, that's still contaminated. That'll give you pretty nasty stuff if you get cut there.
Well, Nagy, you may remember well, we had a round of footy at Passmore Oval, I think it was, we played, and you and I played there in the lower grades on that day. Yeah. And out of the 4 grades who played that day, there was, I believe, 3 players who had to get tetanus shots. Tetanus is the one you get from filthy grounds being irrigated by filthy water, isn't it? Is that tetanus? I think
tetanus, staph as well.
Might have been staph.
Staph, yeah.
Either way, it was Passmore Oval, so avoid it where possible.
Liam, the second one is something that I wasn't aware of. Now, this is the Gilbert 8-panelled ball in the Rugby League World Cup.
This, to me, is one of the most intriguing and incredible pieces of rugby league memorabilia, as I can find almost no reference to it. It's been completely edited out of history. We've got a picture of it that we'll show on the screen. It's been completely edited out of history. There's very few photos remain. I've looked up through the Gilbert website, the Gilbert Wikipedia page, as many fan forums as I could find, and I could find no information on this 8-panelled Gilbert ball that was introduced for the 2000 Rugby League World Cup. So it's just so mysterious to me. It's like Loch Ness monsters.
Now, it takes your traditional 4-panelled ball, so instead of being made up in 4 sort of strips of leather, this is
4
8
oblongs, if you will. This is 8
oblongs of leather. So 8. And was this to do with a different coloured? I've seen a photo, but was this to fit more sponsors on? Was this the?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. It may well have had something to do with sponsorship. So automatically, you're obviously doubling where you can have your sponsors on. But for me, now, our listeners will probably know quite well that Nagy and I were cross-code superstars growing up. So we played plenty of league, we played plenty of union, and to me, Nagy and I,
cycling, swimming, shot put,
shot put, marble racing. Of course, we never made that Armenian marble racing pro league, but we're close. To me, it was always the Gilbert was the better ball for kicking because it had a rounder end, whereas the Steeden had a much more pointy end. It made for a bit of a tougher end-over-end kick.
Yeah, well, the Gilbert's the rugby ball, is that right?
Correct.
But they brought it in for the Rugby League World Cup. This is what you're telling me.
In the year 2000, and they revolutionised it and never did it again. It was very, very strange.
One of those quiet revolutions.
I've spent hours and hours wasting time trying to find out more about this one obscure football, and it's affecting my marriage terribly.
We'll move on. Chubby Checker is a pre-game entertainment for the Adelaide Rams. Now, Liam, this is two things, combination of entertainment and a football team. Both no longer exist.
No, they don't, which is quite sad, I would say. Or maybe Mr. Checker. Adelaide Rams, we couldn't really give 2 shits about, could we? Now,
I thought you were going to say there was no chance of saving. So Chubby Checker, as the rugby league has never been too good with their entertainment. The one time when they got Billy Idol, they said we'll put him on a hovercraft, and the power went out. There was too much Billy Idol for that crowd, and apparently there was words they paid him $60,000 for that back in when it was 2000 and no. It would
have been was Billy Idol 98?
It was 2002. It was Roosters Warriors.
Really? I thought it was way earlier than that.
No.
Well, that would have been those same hoverboards that they used and had great fanfare around at the Sydney 2000 Olympics opening ceremony. I remember at the time they were going to revolutionise the world. They were the game changer. Everyone in the world's going to have a hovercraft.
Hovercraft, yeah.
But it was all just smoke and mirrors. That's all it was, smoke and mirrors.
Interesting. The big thing about a hovercraft that makes it interesting is, obviously it can go over land and water. But when you're only on land, they're not that impressive because they're only showing half of what they can do.
Exactly.
And you want a hovercraft to be off the ground, but really it sort of just glides across the ground.
Yeah.
So it looks like any other vehicle as well.
But let's look, if we're to be honest, Nag, if we're to tell the truth, which I think we as a podcast set out to do, it looks like Mr. Checker, the hoverboard may not have been able to hold him up.
This is Chubby Checker. So we did go a little bit off.
It's right there in his name. There's no way a hovercraft could hold up a man named Chubby. But yeah, that was an interesting another little tidbit we found. What have you got for me next, Nagy?
Mate, I think this one is, you're going to have to walk me through this, and I'll watch it with you. The headbutt try.
I will gladly walk you through the headbutt try. Now, this headbutt try was audacious, to say the least. It's nothing I've ever seen before, nor have I seen since. Now, I believe it was one of the – I can't remember which of the English teams it was, Wigan, St Helens, Bradford. They're all the same. They're all essentially the same. So it was St Helens. There we go. So our man, the big prop, picks it up from hooker. He headbutts it forward intentionally. Two players run through. One of them scores. And as you can see from the slow motion, it's very much an intentional headbutt. But I believe the ruling was, as the ball was passed backwards into the head, then that constitutes the ball going back.
Because you can falcon it. You can falcon it legally.
But now the thing that confuses me about that rule is you cannot tap it forward directly to yourself.
No,
apparently, headbutting's fair game. But yeah, I think have you ever headbutted your way onto a scoreboard, Nagy?
Yeah, I have actually. I was.
I was waiting to move on. I didn't think you'd have a yes for that.
No, I have. I was up under 18s playing a game, and I went through to charge down a kick and copped it clean in the scone. And I'm not sure if you've ever experienced the ball to the face, but it was like being kicked straight to the face. And so I got quite dazed, but then I realised the ball was not too far away from the try line, and I was the closest to it because everyone kept running past me. And then I towed it forward, and I was tripped before I could get to the ball. Still quite dazed. I wasn't sure if I was tripped or if I just tripped over, but I appealed for the trip and was awarded a penalty try.
Wow, that's a good story. I didn't think you'd have one lined up for that. That's a very good story, Dave. Thank you for sharing.
There's no YouTube of that, unfortunately.
Now, the next one, I'd love to lead into this. This was brilliant. This is going to remain on probably the top of the greatest tries scored of all time in the history of rugby league. And it was someone who he was not a noted try assister who set this one up. We can see the ball goes up. A Johnson bomb. Then Nathan Friend. Now, Nathan Friend ends up upside down, head over tit, and yet still manages to collect the ball, propel it between his legs, and give enough space for the try out wide. He was insane. I remember Vossi's call on that. He's never seen anything like it. Try of the year, try of the decade, try of forever.
It was, he's a real hard-working sort of hooker, Nathan Friend. He was just that guy that was just always got stuck in, always made a whack of tackles. He was only 3 foot tall. A bit like Jeff Tuvey, 172 centimetres, I think.
Well, I was going to say more, a bit like a Jake Friend. I wonder if they're related.
I thought we were talking about the same person. So Nathan Friend's different to Jake Friend?
Yeah, Nathan Friend is different to Jake Friend. Jake Friend's the one who plays for the Roosters. But that,
of course, yeah.
Give or take a.
Was Nathan Friend was the one with the headgear? Yeah.
Yeah, that was Nathan.
Yeah, okay, I'm thinking about the correct one then. But it was a wonderful bit of athletics from him, especially get through the legs, but also confirming that instead of bracing his head with his hands, he just threw the ball forward. So
it was a brave move,
bold strategy that paid off for him.
Handsome. Quite handsome.
I suppose he continued to flip, so he was all right. But
imagine, like, if you were giving him a score out of 10, that's got to be a 10. It's as close to
There's a wonderful flick pass after that as well.
Yeah, Johnson flick pass.
I suppose when the Warriors are on, they're on.
It must be so frustrating being a Warriors fan, and that comes from a Newcastle fan.
Yeah.
When they're good, they can be so good, but sometimes at their poorest, my God, they're terrible.
Yeah, sometimes they look like 17 magicians out there. And then
and sometimes they look like 17 magicians' assistants.
Vanessa. Okay.
Next one. This one was an absolute clanger.
Now, this one, everyone, I think, will remember because it was Greg Inglis's brain fart that I believe they referred to it as. And that was his, we're down by 2, so I'll kick a field goal. Now,
and with very little time to go, we're talking like 5 seconds to go.
Yes, yeah. And he must have just assumed at this point that did he get the field goal or did he go for
He got the field goal.
He got the field goal.
He achieved the field goal.
Now, there's a lot happening, during a game, and whether he just assumed that there was 8 points all, which it must be the only scenario because he's not an idiot.
No.
Relative to the game rugby league, he's very intelligent. And so he would know how much, what constitutes what as far as points. So it's, and he must have just assumed it was 6 all. Maybe he forgot that they got the penalty, but it certainly makes for interesting viewing. Considering they had another opportunity that they threw away for the chance of the field goal is, poor Greg.
But again, it's so un-Greg Inglis-like. Even though, if he hadn't gone for the field goal, the Greg Inglis play would have been to set up a try, to score a try. His first instinct's always to score and to win by scoring. So to see that move was particularly strange from a player like Greg Inglis, who's used to doing whatever they can to win, which that's probably what he thought he was doing. But
I guess.
It's harking back to, I'm pretty sure field goals in league used to be 3 points.
Yeah.
As they are in union.
I think it was before his time, though.
It would have been well before his time, but I don't know, maybe he likes his archival rugby league.
3 points is a lot of points
for
a field goal. Maybe we should bring that back.
Bring it back to 3. But
there seems to be lots of fiddling with phone. Is it resting on your legs? Have you got the jitter legs or something?
It is, yes. Yeah, I had to move it because I was dislocating my knees trying to sit cross-legged. But I'm still now. I've got my place and I'm still.
We'll move on to the next oddity. Liam, is the famous Parramatta the Wall, which is one of the
Parramatta Wall.
The pet plays. Yeah.
I love this play. I love it with all my heart. Obviously Sterling starts it off, and then you've got your 5 players standing in a line, obviously lined up so that each pass will be a backwards pass, and then you pass it along, fiddle with it, back to Sterlo, right through the middle. There was only one way that I saw this successfully counted, and I can't remember who it was by, but it makes me think it was by the West Magpies, was that they'd just send 1 or 2 blokes, as soon as the wall set up, they'd send 1 or 2 blokes up and just start throwing elbows.
Yes.
And that was the way they defeat the wall.
And that was the, because that would be a shepherd these days, surely. If that would be.
I would think it would be, yeah. I'm not entirely sure on the rules on that. We'll get, who's the ref's boss these days?
I don't know, Robert Finch?
Finchy. We'll get Finchy on the line. Why not?
But it was definitely, I would wish we got a little bit more of that. The set plays that we see now, are nowhere near as sort of exuberant as that.
They're not, these moves are more like they're from,
an
Park
NFL
footy or lower grade footy.
Yeah. Or even like an NFL play, it's.
That's it. Bodies in motion, moving the ball around, creating blockers in defence. Very NFL-like. You're right there, Nagy.
We don't get that much anymore.
Which is a shame.
We're code jumping again to this is against the British Lions at number 2 Sports Ground. Is that?
It was correct? Indeed number 2 Sports Ground in Newcastle. Now this is one of the greatest of all time. You've got a scrum 5 metres out. Country have got a pretty decent scrum, so they're holding it to the Lions, and then the halfback pops the ball up to the blindside winger, who strides across the scrum over the top of his teammates and opposition alike to score right behind the scrum. And I've actually got an interesting story about the player who scored that try. He's a bloke by the name of Dwayne Vines. Now, Dwayne was picked for the Wallabies in 84, I believe, and was going to play on the 85 Tour of Europe. but he came home because he had a baby on the way. And then he had a second child after retiring from his Australian rugby union career, who was a young girl in my class in primary school. So I knew Mr. Vines growing up, and then later found out that was his move and was quite awestruck.
You say you're dating his daughter?
Briefly, yes.
Briefly, oh, hey, history there. Liam, you're a married
It was like
man
it was like a 5th grade romance.
Oh, so it's quite serious then.
That was very serious, yes.
Featherstone versus Batley. How would you pronounce that?
Featherstone versus Batley. No, I
Batley.
described it as Batley, yeah.
Which is good because I'm glad you said that, because that the same spelling as a street that I lived on for 2 years, and I called it Batley. But if you said Batley there, I would have been very embarrassed with how I described my street name to everyone that I ran into.
You'd be as embarrassed as the man who put through this final kick for Featherstone to score. Well, I don't know which of the teams it is that scored, because I don't actually know either of the teams. So you'd be as embarrassed as the team member that tried to kick the ball out.
Of course. So the one I'm watching is doesn't have a thing, but the hooter goes off, and he assumes, well, hang on, game's over, we're in front. Let's do one of those heroic victory kicks, a la Jared Haynes style, sort of running the ball dead. But instead of kicking it towards a sideline, he kicks it towards 60 meters of open field. And if you keep the camera on him, you can pretty much follow the moment his heart rips in half, because he tries so hard to get there, and he looks, and he really, and he almost gets caught up in the celebration, of everyone. Is this the same? Yeah, and there's just a moment after he kicks it, and he sort of wants to celebrate, but then he sees everyone still running for it, and he has to turn and chase, which is funny because even after he kicked it, he probably would have got there if he didn't celebrate. So there was, 2 moments that he can regret for the rest of his life.
It's almost like Paul Carriage. Remember the Paul Carriage game, 98 Bulldogs Para? I think it was Paul Carriage.
Semi-final, yeah. It
was semi-final, yeah. Paul Carriage had the worst 5 minutes of any rugby league player ever, and still he's more well known than this bloke who single-handedly lost his team the game. But yeah, I actually rewatched that the Paul Carriage lowlights the other day, and by God, no wonder that man left the game for good and never showed his face again.
One of the guys who used to play for Canterbury, Robert Ralph.
Oh yeah, Ralphie. Yeah.
He was the coach of the Northern Blues in about 2006 or 2007.
He was a fullback, wasn't he, Robert Ralph?
I know, back row. Stocky fellow.
I'm getting mixed up with Rod Silver.
I've never heard a man utter less English, sort of, with the amount of swearing he used to do. Even in just general conversation, everything was, this fucking, if you hit this fucking. And I was like, and you're sort of like, Jesus Christ.
He was a passionate man.
He was a passionate man that had a lot on his mind. Now, interesting lineup versus the Adelaide Rams. Get another mention of this. Adelaide Rams in themselves a bit of an oddity, but this particular lineup that you've come across, Liam, is just bizarre.
It's a very strange one. Now, Jason Allen was pretty well known as a winger, so him slotting into fullback. We've got this up on the screen here. Slotting into fullback's a very reasonable place for him to fit. Then at number 2, you've got Sean Rudder, who would later become a back rower and then finally, obviously, win the 2001 Premiership as a 5'8". Jason Moody in the centre. Do you remember Jason Moody playing in the centres much, Nagy?
No.
For me, he was always a winger.
Yeah. But who comes in? Who wears the number 1 jersey, Liam?
Now, the funny thing, wearing the number 1 jersey but playing in the centres, Daniel Badiris.
Daniel Badiris, yeah.
Arguably the second greatest hooker of all time, and yet here he is starting, intending to start at fullback, but being moved to the centres, likely due to injury. Then you've got Matthew Gidley in the halves. Another one that I'd forgotten, I didn't remember that Matt Gidley played in the halves.
Matt Gidley went back and played a bit of 5'8" in a game that might be remembered as some of the worst rugby league ever, is a game against Canberra. And at the time, Matt Gilly was playing pretty good football, and it was '05. I think he'd retired from rep football, but he still just made the countryside or something. So he was still considered one of the in New South Wales' best centres. And then I believe he made 5 errors during this game. And all he had to do was sort of get the ball wide from Joey and sort of run down the short side. And
that's it. Playing 5'8" outside Andrew Johns is the world's easiest job.
Yeah, and he made it look very hard. I felt for him that game, but that was his last go with another 6 on his back.
Right, so it didn't end well.
No, I kind of
end well.
Maybe he had a few good games there. He was just such a good centre. He was. He was the centre of all time, and it's like we spoke about last week. He wasn't just a centre; he was, that part of that great centre wing combination that he had with Tamana Tahu. That was just, something else incredible. It was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. What a guy. So we got here Sam Burgess packing into...
No, we've got Sam Thaiday.
Into
a Bulldog scrum. Now, Sam Thaiday was quite well known, obviously, for being a bit of a larrikin. He knew his way around a joke.
What's the timestamp on this? Because this one's got quite a few.
Yeah, I can't find the timestamp. Sorry, I'll have to just get that put in. Anyway, we can just talk about Sam Thaiday being humorous.
He was a humorous fellow, and there was several. Here we go. It's towards the end. So he's running back on side. He was also a humorous fellow, but he's also quite a fat fellow. Let's be honest. He always looked like that he was carrying a bit of extra beef around.
Let's be honest. He was making use of that Macca's card that all Broncos players get. $20 per day.
$20 per day they get on Macca's cards. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this slightly earlier, Liam. How the Broncos players gets $20 per day as credit, which is $140 a week.
That's a lot of McDonald's.
It's a lot of McDonald's. But then we were also discussing on the cricket how remember they had a year supply of KFC. It was like if you win this comp, it was a year supply of KFC.
Yes,
but the fine print, Liam, read a little bit of a different story. It was not quite a year supply, but 26 $50 vouchers. Now that's by my calculations about $25 a week.
Yeah, that maths is not good. It doesn't quite add up quite too well. No.
So I don't is that really a year's worth? I think it should be unlimited. That really should be the year's worth.
It should be. Well, if you are to get a year's worth, it should be 1 year's worth.
Yeah.
Not you can have this much. They should, we should be able to say, hey, I'm getting a year's worth. I get to decide how much of it I use in a year. The decision needs to be on the consumer. It can't be on the giver because they just want to make money off us. Let's be honest. It's just a system. They're here to make money. We're here to spend money.
Yeah.
And let's wrap that sentence up because I wasn't sure where it was going.
We should take it right up to the Colonel.
Right to the Colonel. I'll tell you what. Let's give the Colonel a call. We'll get him on the line. Yeah, there's another friend of the show.
There's several different ways that you can tackle in rugby league. There's the high tackle around the shoulders. There's the low tackle around the legs, and then there is also the what's it called, the grip of the squirrel. Now, Liam, why do you call it a squirrel grip?
As far as I know, they call it the squirrel grip because in winter, obviously, squirrels go into hibernation and they hide in the tree and they take their food into the tree. But as they go into hibernation, they kind of contract into a smaller ball. Which, as a male, you would know in winter, similar thing happens to the fellas. They kind of contract. They try to make a nice place for them. So I won't get too graphic with this, but now, I think that's why they call it a squirrel grip, because it's the same transformation a squirrel undergoes in winter.
I thought it was always just because, the squirrel always goes to the nuts.
Of course, that's it, Nagy. My story was ludicrous. Why did you entertain me?
I don't know.
With believing me for a moment.
It sounded you were so sure of yourself. So if we have a look here, at forward 38, He just goes straight down, and then you can see the man writhing in pain. Who is that that's on the ground there?
Who was it? It was
number 3 for the Storm. Is that the Queensland fellow?
I think it was Chase. Yeah, it was Will Chambers. Will Chambers.
Well, we don't like him, so
no, that's it. He's terrible. So we can allow what happened to happen.
But a man knows that happens when you do that to another man. There's no surprise there.
I was surprised there wasn't more kickback from his teammates. That's if you're going to run in and defend your teammate for anything, it's having the boys down there grab. So to me, I was just surprised there wasn't a more spirited resistance from the other team. But then I guess it is Sam Burgess, and I wouldn't start him if he cut my testicles off with softened scissors.
Would you be a dobber?
I'm sorry. Softened scissors?
I was trying to think of the word blunted.
Blunted. But you said
blunted scissors.
All right, I'll go back. I'll disappear again. Sorry.
Yeah, couldn't get that one through. So, sorry to our listeners. Must apologise. I did mean to say blunted scissors, not softened scissors, because I don't think that exists.
There's also, there's some players. Rugby league and NRL is made up of a rich sort of tapestry of players.
Oh, absolutely. One of them, the very, very richest.
It's a true metropolitan of players. It's a melting pot of players.
But then again, when you speak of a rich tapestry, then there are certainly other parts of the game that instead of a rich tapestry are those really cheap tapestries you buy at the rug galleries that are forever going out of sale. Is Romani's rug gallery still open?
Probably having a sale right now.
They had a closing down sale for 1 decade and 1/2 of a decade.
What was the place near Romani's? I feel like it was advertised at alongside Romani's, and it was like a jewel store, or like a gem shop. Do you remember that?
No.
The elephant shop.
The elephant in Cooranbong.
And does that have anything to do with Romani's rug gallery?
Well,
they might be in cahoots.
I think they're cahooting, yeah.
I don't know why I've put them together in my memory.
Well, look, I've got to be honest with you. There is no way an elephant shop in Cooranbong is making money. So that's a front for something. I don't know what, but that's not making money. They're filtering something through there.
They sell you gemstones and say they'll go great with your rugs, which you can purchase next door at Romani's. and then he walks in and he.
I think it's fucking bold starting a business and calling it the elephant shop and not selling any elephants.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a similar shop out here on the way to Bolton Point. That's it's called the Rocks Box, and they sell what is it? They sell gems, fossils. Dinosaurs and some other stuff that I just don't see a market for. It's just a strange shop.
The good people of Bolton Point don't.
It's in West Warners Bay. So
right, okay.
Suburb I just made up. There is no West Warners Bay.
I was surprised. I thought that was but there was someone that makes up part of this rich tapestry. It has great physical attributes, but I'm not sure if he's also has equal, let's just say, intelligence and understanding of the world, and that is Fui Moi Moi.
Yes, Fui, one of our favourite cult heroes.
And this is one of him leaving the ground, coming off, and many of the players fought a Powerade, I believe, was what they're contractually obliged to have.
Often you'll see the Powerade bottle with the tape around the Powerade bit, so they've got something different in there. They've not got their usual Powerade.
But he's decided to go for the clear plastic cup that you get at the football with some beer in it.
And look, I think it's a thing of beauty. It should be the way that players still act in that manner. It's a callback to a lovely time,
a simpler time.
I'm sorry, but straight after that beer shot there's some kid totally axing himself on a stage, and you didn't mention that at all.
Oof, yeah, no, it's...
see, I was saving that one for a little Easter egg. I was hoping one of our listeners might mention that. But, Josh, if we could get the footage over here, that would be perfect, because the kid does absolutely axe himself. I believe he's going up it's the grand final. He's heading up the stairs. he just eats shit. He just eats shit, the poor little kid. But, he got to go on the stage during a grand final and I never did, so fuck him.
There's now then we'll go to our second last video of the
Yes.
night. And this is Suyasi Vinavalu, which is a bit spicy.
It is a bit spicy. We'll have to follow it up with a Bevan French.
Yeah, it's just to cool us down. Now, but Liam, there's...
Oh, hang on, wait. I forgot to mention in the last one. Frothy moi moi.
Yes, that was
frothy moi moi. That's what I titled the video.
You could be right up there with the Telegraph, Liam. With that,
but I digressed. Fooey fooey.
No, Suyasi. Bit of like you got your vowels mixed up there. Now he gallops into the defensive line, but instead of it being a sprint, he thought it was more of a hurdle. And
he thought he was one of those horses at the Grand National.
Yes, yeah. Grand National's a frightening race.
Isn't it terrifying? Yeah,
because
there's hedges, there's a lake.
The Melbourne Cup, is 3.2 Ks or something like that. The Grand National goes on for about 4 days, and there's a 100 horse start, and only 3 jockeys survive. Like
it's a brilliant. Well, that's it. It's like the Paris to Dakar rally, except in one field.
Yes,
they condense it all down. They have all the good parts that you want from a Paris to Dakar rally, but they condense it down into one field of horses. It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
So Suyasi here.
I think there should be more of it.
Yeah. Well, Suyasi has his best go at it here by literally running and jumping. Now, there's always a child, when you're playing football at a young age, there's always at least one kid that does this. But you'd think he would have grown out of it at the age of 25 or however old he was here. Because he launches right off the ground to put his knees in line with the tackling players' heads.
I will never not laugh at this. It's absolutely incredible. And, of course, Suyasi, he's a close cousin of a very good friend of the show, Cade McGregor-Hines. So next time you see Cade, just remind him. But the thing that gets forgotten out of this is the incredible pickup that leads up to the man hurdling. He lands, I think he slides on the ground, takes it in his hands, drops it, and catches it with his knees, only to pick it up again. So one of the great takes of all time was turned into one of the most humorous blunders of all time. I think it'd be fair to say.
I like how he just sort of keeps going, and then in his mind he probably thought it worked, but the other players just thought we're not going to tackle you because that's ridiculous. You're being a ridiculous human. Now, Liam, the last one is probably the most famous oddity in rugby league, and I'm trying to think of a way I can type this into YouTube and get the desired.
Just type exactly what you're thinking about, and I can tell you it's the first result.
Now, it's the game's proctologist. He's with his autobiography simply called "Finger Up the Bum." It's our favourite NRL oddity of John Habuade. And now there was always questions around why he did this.
But no answers. Lots of questions, but no answers.
He simply said, I think he wanted to provoke them to fight him, and he thought, what better way? And
he's got a good point there, actually.
I think if you follow him on Instagram, which I do with the Narmate account, you find out that there's not a lot of answers to your questions. He is a man unlike any other man.
He clearly hasn't learnt any lessons. He got a 10-year ban from being involved with rugby league last year playing park footy in Sydney. Which is not an easy thing to do, to get a 10-year, or it might have been a lifetime ban. Either way, it was a hefty ban.
I don't think anyone's going to miss him either. I don't know what he like. It's just such a thing. He knew the game was televised, and he knew that the people would do something about it. At least say, look, there's a guy out there sticking his finger up everyone's bottom. But the one from when he's on his back is
you can see his eyes just light up. Like, oh, there it is.
It's such a bizarre thing to do.
There it is. There's my ticket to the world of fame.
And because did he can I remember was he suspended for this? Was this?
I would imagine so.
Obviously, it's bringing the game into disrepute. But also, why do they have so much footage of it? Like, why did it happen more than once? That's the question. Surely it's got to be asked.
That is a very good question, actually. I never really considered that. I mean, it's good. I almost didn't actually include this one because it's so, easy and obvious, and we remember it so fondly, but
it's certainly strange, though.
If you don't mind, I'd like to read you guys something.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
This is from John Hopewadi's Wikipedia page. Yeah. It says, during a 2001 clash with the North Queensland Cowboys, Hopewadi, in an attempt to unsettle several of his opponents, inserted his finger in 3 players' anuses. The first occurring during the 7th minute of play. Well, they've actually broken it down. At the conclusion of the match, the matter was immediately referred to the Rugby League Judiciary. On the 28th of March, Hopewadi was suspended for 12 weeks for what one referred to as disgusting, violent, and offensive behaviour.
That's 4 weeks per bottom.
That seems appropriate. Well, what was
2
the
weeks
suspension? 2 weeks. 2 weeks of cheek. There you go. That's his autograph. That's his appeal. Yeah. 2 weeks of cheek. That should be his legal appeal slogan.
Listen to this quote. The quote that says, the 3 victims in the case, Cowboys players Glenn Morrison, Peter Jones, and Paul Bowman, all disagreed with the reasoning put forward by Hopewadi and his team. Jones stated, "It wasn't a wedgie. That's when your pants are pulled up your ass. I think I know the difference between a wedgie and someone sticking their finger up my bum."
That I had a very similar. Sorry, very similar is the wrong word. It was completely different, but at the same time, very similar. No, not myself. No, this was an incident that happened at the footy judiciary for the local union. A teammate of ours got sent to the judiciary for biting a guy's finger. And the judiciary says, you're brought up on charges of biting against this player over here. How do you plead to these charges? I said, I'll plead guilty. I said, do you want to defend yourself? He said, yep. Bloke put his finger on my mouth, so I bit the bastard.
It's a little bit different to sticking the finger up the bottom, though. Let's just say that.
I thought it might be, actually.
Well, yeah, if you stick your finger up someone's bottom, they can't bite you.
I wasn't. Well, Josh, you clearly haven't been doing your Kegels. Is Kegels for men? No? Is it cervix stuff? I don't know. Let's cut the bit about Kegels.
No, it's staying in.
Oh, fuck.
Liam, that was our first roll through of all the rugby league oddities that have happened over the years. It was certainly interesting, and some of which I was, happy to revisit. Some not so much. But we'll certainly find something to do for next week's joust via Zoom, and but also there's been a bit of movement lately with talks of certain restrictions being relaxed, and can we say that if we can get more than 4 people in a room together, we will continue to go back to our fine studio and continue delivering that same joust flavour that we all love. What would the joust flavour be if the flavour would
musty? It would be musty.
Yeah. I'd say it would taste a little bit like just when you've finished the beer, but then and it's either your last one or you don't want to get up and you go, you leave it for a few minutes, the dregs. And then you just have that last little bit, and it just doesn't taste like much of anything, but it doesn't taste good. That's what the joust
taste
flavor.
That's what we taste like.
Familiar but bad. I think we can be described as. Thank you very much for joining us again, Liam. I'll no doubt be speaking to you very soon, probably to watch an episode of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares again.
Oh, you will indeed. Maybe that could be some upcoming content, Nagy fans. Let us know if you love Kitchen Nightmares as much as we do, and we'll maybe look at doing something. And if you hate Kitchen Nightmares, go to hell.
Yeah, it's the most wonderful program.
It's fantastic.
If you like us, you can find us on Zoom, via Facebook, and hopefully we'll be seeing you all very soon. Liam, do you have anything else to say?
Nothing, Nag. You put it so succinctly and beautiful. I do think you mentioned Instagram, though, and iTunes.
Instagram, iTunes, all those social pipes.
All the social pipes.
But, God, I miss the outside world.
Oh, it's terrible. We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there eventually. Bye-bye.
See you, jousters.